Every 80 years, America faces a massive crisis that reshapes everything. The last ones gave us the Revolution, the Civil War, and World War II. Now it's happening again. The economy is cracking, trust is collapsing, and tension builds like pressure in a sealed pipe. Historians call this the fourth turning, the storm that breaks one world to create another. The only question left is, which one will we end up in? History doesn't move in a straight line. It repeats itself in cycles. Civilizations grow, decay, and rebuild. The idea sounds dramatic, but evidence shows every society goes through predictable stages of order, chaos, and renewal, again and again. Two historians, William Strauss and Neil Howe, noticed this pattern decades ago. They studied centuries of Western history and found that every 80 years or so, nations hit a breaking point. They called this final stage the fourth turning. Each turning represents a mood of society. The first is rebuilding, the second is awakening, the third is disillusionment, and the fourth is crisis. When one ends, the next begins, just like seasons changing no matter who's in charge. In a fourth turning, the world feels unstable. People argue more, systems break down, and power shifts to whoever adapts fastest. It's the phase where institutions collapse so something new can rise from the wreckage. After every crisis, there's a rebirth. The first turning follows when stability returns. Governments rebuild, people unite, and optimism takes root again. But that comfort slowly fades, and the cycle begins to tilt back toward conflict once more. During the second turning, people start questioning everything they rebuilt. They challenge authority and chase meaning. Culture changes, traditions fade, and new ideals replace the old. It's a period of discovery, but also deep division. By the third turning, that energy burns out, cynicism spreads, and trust disappears. Governments grow corrupt, families weaken, and communities drift apart. The nation feels aimless, and faith in the future quietly slips away. Then comes the fourth turning, when unresolved problems explode. Old systems can't handle the pressure anymore. Everything that's been ignored, suppressed, or denied comes crashing forward, demanding change no one can avoid. America has followed this rhythm before. The Revolution, the Civil War, and World War II were all fourth turnings. Each brought suffering, but also transformation, shaping a completely new version of the nation that survived. The first crisis forged independence. The second tore the country apart to rebuild it stronger. The third reshaped the world order with new alliances and global leadership. Every time society came out different, for better or worse. The timeline is striking. Roughly 4 generations pass between each turning, about 80 years. That means the next great crisis falls right around now, the 2020s. The math, disturbingly, lines up almost perfectly. If history holds true, America is entering its next period of chaos. And this time, the threats aren't distant armies. They're internal, political, economic, and social systems are breaking from within, piece by piece. In every turning, people ask when the storm will start. But what if it already has? Inflation, protests, collapsing trust, and constant outrage all point to a nation already inside the early stages of the fourth turning. Past crises all began with the same pattern. Confidence fading, leadership losing control, and generations clashing. The same signals are flashing today, only now amplified by technology and global interconnection. The question isn't whether America faces another fourth turning, it's how it will play out. Every crisis forces a reset. This one could lead to renewal, or to something darker than we've seen before. Strauss and Howe believe generations each play a role in these moments. Every age group behaves differently under pressure, shaping how the crisis unfolds and how a nation either survives or collapses. The baby boomers, born after World War II, grew up in comfort and became the ruling generation. They built today's systems of politics, business, and media, but now they're aging, still trying to hold the wheel. Generation X, the smaller skeptical middle group, learned not to trust authority. They navigate chaos quietly, practical but detached, watching the fight between boomers and millennials from both sides. Millennials, once the hopeful generation, now carry heavy economic burdens. Crushed by debt and high costs, they face fewer opportunities. They were promised a bright future, but reality has become a constant financial struggle. Gen Z is coming of age in the middle of the storm. They've never seen a calm society. They grew up online, connected yet isolated, and now face a world already burning from older generations' mistakes. The fourth turning happens when these generations collide. The old guard clings to power while the young demand change. The The pressure builds until something gives, usually through crisis, war, or a complete institutional reset. Boomers struggle to maintain influence as they lose credibility. Millennials push for new systems. Gen X tries to stay neutral but feels forced to choose sides. The gap between generations becomes a political fault line. This friction echoes the past. In the 1930s, generational anger fueled social movements and political revolutions. In the 1850s, it tore families apart and led to civil war. History doesn't copy itself, but it rhymes in patterns. The same discontent we see today once existed before every great conflict. When people stop trusting leaders, money, and each other, society becomes fragile. That's how fourth turnings always begin. Quietly, then all at once. We are already seeing the pressure points crack. Economic strain, political division, and digital warfare have turned daily life into a battle of narratives. The foundation feels unstable, and no one agrees on what's real anymore. In the 1930s, political chaos and economic collapse followed years of denial. The same sequence is repeating today. Leaders downplay warnings, but the stress is visible in every market, election, and public argument across the country. Before the Civil War, newspapers exaggerated every conflict, deepening anger between North and South. Today's media does the same through social platforms, feeding outrage algorithms that divide communities while pretending to inform them. The 1770s saw colonists furious at distant rulers they believed had forgotten them. The modern version is citizens feeling ignored by elites, convinced that no one in power truly represents them anymore. History keeps showing that nations collapse not from invasion, but from distrust. When people stop believing in shared truth, institutions lose their grip, and systems begin to unravel piece by piece. Signs of the fourth turning are already measurable. Inflation, extreme wealth gaps, and collapsing birth rates reveal that society has reached a breaking point. The ground beneath modern life is shifting faster than anyone expected. The economy now feels like a machine shaking itself apart. Every sector depends on debt, every paycheck stretched thinner. The illusion of endless growth is fading as reality forces people to question what money even means. Government debt has reached record levels, yet spending continues unchecked. People see it, understand it, but feel powerless. That quiet acceptance often comes right before economic systems reach their natural breaking point. Savings lose value faster than wages rise. Families cut corners, delay dreams, and hope prices will fall. But history suggests the opposite. Inflation often becomes the spark that turns frustration into open rebellion. Housing, once a symbol of success, is now out of reach for millions. A generation raised on promises of ownership faces permanent renting instead. It mirrors the hopelessness seen before the Great Depression. Corporations replace human labor with automation, cutting jobs while profits grow. People sense the imbalance but can't stop it. When economic systems reward machines over people, social collapse becomes more than a theory, it becomes predictable. Earlier crises followed the same path. In the 1920s, speculation inflated markets. In the 2000s, debt did the same. Every bubble ends with panic, and panic always reshapes nations faster than politicians can respond. During the Great Depression, the country was forced to reinvent itself. Entire industries vanished while new ones rose. That cycle could be repeating, only now accelerated by global technology and digital dependency. Even the 1770s showed echoes of financial stress. Heavy taxation and debt pushed ordinary people toward revolution. Economic pain, more than ideology, often decides when the next chapter of history begins. Today's economic reset might not come through war or rebellion but through technology. Digital currencies, artificial intelligence, and automation could redefine labor, control, and ownership in ways no government is ready for. When financial systems fail, people lose faith, not only in banks but in each other. Commerce slows, fear rises, and communities fracture. Economic collapse doesn't just empty wallets, it empties trust. Across the country, strikes and worker protests echo past eras of desperation. People demand fairness, but leaders trade blame instead of solutions. This growing frustration is the first visible symptom of deeper structural failure. Middle-class families feel trapped, working harder for less. Their savings shrink while costs rise. Anger turns into quiet resentment, and resentment turns into collective outrage. This pressure is exactly how the early fourth turnings always ignite. When basic needs become uncertain, politics turns extreme. People stop debating policies and start picking sides for survival. That shift is already visible in every argument about jobs, housing, and who deserves help. Wealth inequality fuels this divide. A small fraction of people now control more resources than entire generations before them. That imbalance always becomes unsustainable, no matter how advanced or modern the system claims to be. Economic cracks lead to social fractures. Once money loses meaning, people lose direction. The next turning is never just about markets, it's about the collapse of belief in the fairness of the entire system. Trust in media has dropped to record lows. People tune in not to learn, but to confirm what they already believe. Information no longer unites, it separates, forming isolated realities that rarely overlap. Both political sides believe the other is destroying the country. That level of division mirrors the 1850s when compromise failed completely. Once that happens, every national issue becomes a personal one, and anger spreads faster than reason. Online algorithms thrive on emotion. The more outrage users show, the more content they see. It's a loop of constant division, powered by invisible code that quietly replaces community with conflict. As mainstream outlets lose credibility, conspiracy theories rise. People search for answers outside traditional sources, but most find echo chambers instead. The noise becomes so loud that truth itself feels impossible to locate. Elections, once the symbol of unity, now divide nations even further. Each side believes the other cheats. Institutions lose legitimacy, and the foundation of democracy begins to shake. This level of distrust always marks the midpoint of crisis. Police, schools, and public agencies face backlash from every direction. Some accuse them of overreach, others of weakness. The result is paralysis, where no decision pleases anyone, and authority begins to lose meaning. Before the Civil War, local governments ignored federal orders. That same defiance appears today as cities and states challenge national power, creating a patchwork of laws that weakens unity further with every passing month. Before World War II, propaganda divided entire nations. Today, digital media performs the same role at scale, spreading fear and loyalty to competing truths. Each side believes it's saving the country while pushing it closer to fracture. Constant exposure to conflict wears people down. Citizens grow numb, unable to tell what's real. That exhaustion is part of every fourth turning, when people stop believing change is possible and chaos starts feeling normal. As faith in systems fades, people look inward. Online groups, local gatherings, and alternative movements replace shared institutions. Society becomes a web of small tribes, united only by frustration with everything larger than themselves. In this fragmented world, the idea of truth splits into pieces. Every community builds its own version, and those versions collide daily. This is how nations lose the glue that once held them together. Technology promised connection, but delivered isolation. Screens act as mirrors, reflecting fear and anger back at everyone. The more people talk, the less they listen, and the country feels like it's shouting into itself. Independent voices rise from the noise, claiming to expose corruption. Some seek truth, others profit from chaos. Either way, they erode the last bit of trust people had in traditional leadership. When trust disappears, a power gap forms. History shows that someone always fills it, either reformers or opportunists. The direction a nation takes depends entirely on who steps forward first when everyone else steps back. Political confrontation becomes unavoidable. Protests evolve into movements, and movements demand control. The middle ground shrinks until neutrality itself looks like betrayal, forcing citizens to pick a side just to feel safe. In Congress and state houses, debate turns into warfare. Every bill, every statement becomes a battlefield. Cooperation vanishes, replaced by personal attacks and political games designed only to win headlines. Protests spread across major cities, some peaceful, others destructive. Both sides claim moral authority. The line between civil demonstration and civil unrest grows harder to define as exhaustion mixes with anger on the streets. Small communities begin ignoring national mandates, forming their own rules. Governors defy federal leaders. City councils resist state orders. The country starts behaving like separate nations, still pretending to share one flag. In the 1850s, similar fractures appeared before the first shots of the Civil War. Today, those same regional divides reappear, north and south replaced by urban and rural, but the pattern remains nearly identical. Foreign powers notice the weakness. They exploit division through propaganda, cyber attacks, and trade manipulation. History has shown that every internal crisis invites outside pressure, testing how much strain a country can survive before breaking. Cyber war replaces traditional battlefields. Information becomes the weapon. Power grids, data networks, and communication lines turn into targets, showing that modern warfare doesn't need bombs to cause real damage. Trade conflicts deepen the strain. Supply chains tighten, energy prices surge, and allies drift away. The global balance that held for decades begins to wobble as each nation prioritizes survival over cooperation. Confidence in alliances fades. Once stable partnerships like NATO and the UN face open skepticism. History shows that when global cooperation breaks, major wars or resets often follow within a single generation. Young voters, tired of empty promises, abandon traditional parties. They seek movements, not politicians, aiming to rebuild politics from the ground up. But without structure, their energy risks collapsing into chaos instead of reform. Talk of rewriting the Constitution begins to spread. Scholars debate whether the system itself is outdated. The idea sounds extreme, but every fourth turning eventually forces a legal and moral reset of some kind. As fear rises, leaders call for emergency powers. Some support the move, hoping it restores order. Others see it as the start of tyranny. This debate splits citizens further, deepening distrust in the people meant to protect them. Street clashes grow frequent. Rival groups claim certain neighborhoods. Law enforcement struggles to maintain control without inflaming tensions. Each confrontation fuels the next, and televised outrage keeps the nation on edge. Ordinary people start avoiding public spaces. Daily life feels unpredictable. So many focus only on survival, work, food, and safety. When daily fear replaces normalcy, social collapse stops being a theory and becomes a lived experience. Financial markets react to political instability. Investors flee risky assets, triggering waves of panic that reach ordinary households. Retirement funds shrink, businesses close, and the sense of control that once defined the modern world fades fast. By now, every thread of the old order feels strained. People sense something large approaching, a breaking point that history always delivers when systems can no longer hold themselves together. The storm has only just begun. Every fourth turning has a spark that lights the fire. In the past it was revolution, secession, or world war. The pattern suggests another trigger is near, waiting for one event to push everything past the point of return. In 1776, it was rebellion against monarchy. In 1861, it was a divided nation over slavery. In 1941, it was global war. Each began with shock, forcing unity through hardship that no one could escape. This time, the trigger could come from anywhere: a financial collapse, cyber attack, or regional war spreading faster than leaders can contain. It doesn't need to be planned, only powerful enough to expose how weak the system already is. When the trigger hits, denial disappears. The markets tumble, communication breaks, and daily life halts. The crisis reveals what decades of comfort hid, that the foundations of modern life were already cracked long before the collapse. Leaders scramble for control, emergency meetings fill the news, but decisions feel reactive instead of strategic. The people watching realize that the institutions built to protect them are now struggling just to function. In every previous fourth turning, confusion ruled the early phase. People argued about who to blame rather than how to rebuild. The same chaos repeats, this time spread instantly across the globe through screens and networks. When order breaks, people stop waiting for instructions. Local groups step in to fill the void, creating new ways to share food, safety, and information. Out of crisis, small communities rediscover how to take care of each other. Across towns and cities, neighbors become organizers. They trade skills, repair systems, and build trust from the ground up. This is how every new order begins, not from leaders, but from people forced to survive together. It mirrors the wartime spirit of the 1940s, when unity replaced comfort, fear drives cooperation, and survival resets priorities. History shows that after every collapse, community becomes the only stable form of power. The old systems, buried under corruption and greed, cannot return. Their collapse clears the space for something entirely new. Every previous turning ended the same way, through pain, exhaustion, and eventual renewal. When the worst has passed, the rebuilding starts quietly. People who lived through the breakdown become the architects of the new world. They value simplicity, honesty, and stability more than wealth or ambition. From the ruins, new coalitions rise. Political movements once seen as radical become mainstream. The young take control, shaping policies that match the lessons learned from years of failure and loss. Fresh leaders emerge, not from the elite class but from everyday life. Their credibility comes from action, not title. Society begins to rebuild trust through smaller, more transparent systems that focus on people over profit. Innovation becomes necessity. Energy, housing, and labor transform as communities adapt. The inventions born in crisis form the backbone of the next age, just as the industrial boom followed the Depression and the digital boom followed global war. As the nation reshapes, lifestyles simplify, luxury gives way to practicality, families strengthen, and local economies replace fragile global chains. The shift feels hard at first, but restores a sense of meaning lost during years of excess. Values realign around shared purpose. The focus moves from individual gain to collective survival. History records these moments as rebirths because they strip away illusions and force societies to remember what truly sustains them. Debt resets, currencies change, and the world rebalances. For a while, chaos gives way to structure again. The exhaustion of conflict creates an opening for stability, marking the start of the next first turning. Foreign powers retreat, focusing on their own rebuilding. Nations withdraw from empire-like ambitions and turn inward to repair broken foundations. Global order shrinks, replaced by smaller but more grounded systems of governance. A new generation defines what America means. They grow up hearing stories of collapse but living in renewal. Every great nation rebuilds its myth after each turning, and this generation becomes the storyteller for the next cycle. The painful memories remain, but they serve as warning signs. People learn that stability isn't permanent. It must be earned through awareness, adaptability, and balance. Lessons each turning forces humanity to relearn. Every crisis leaves behind choices. Some nations rebuild stronger, others fade away. What matters is how people respond when the system breaks. The fourth turning never guarantees survival, it only guarantees change. This is the point where awareness matters most. History shows that understanding the cycle helps societies steer through it, instead of being consumed by it. Awareness becomes the first tool of survival. Preparation doesn't mean fear, it means seeing the pattern clearly and acting with calm focus. People who understand history aren't shocked by crisis, they adapt faster and help guide others through the confusion. There's still hope in this turning. Out of every collapse, something new emerges. The strength of communities, innovation, and shared purpose can build a world that corrects the mistakes that caused the fall. So we stand at the edge again, between collapse and rebirth. The years ahead will decide whether America repeats its old mistakes or evolves into something wiser. The fourth turning has arrived, and its ending is still unwritten.